Just when it seemed like social media had reached its peak, a new platform launched that immediately grabbed the attention of millions of users, took over the pages of every major tech publication, and had investors buzzing, hoping for their chance to get in on the action. Maybe we were just tired of posting pictures on Instagram, or we got tired of arguing with people on Facebook, or maybe we just needed something new while on lockdown during the pandemic. Whatever caused this new hunger for social connections, Clubhouse was there to take advantage of it. It was only a year and a half ago that Clubhouse launched, and it didn't take long for it to become a household name. It was fresh, unique, and most of all, it was exclusive. It had celebrities, world-class business people, athletes, musicians, some random scammers, and fake gurus, of course, and it had all the conversations that you wanted to be a part of. But for as much FOMO as Clubhouse created for us social media nerds, the appeal quickly wore off, and the popularity was gone, like a fart in the wind. But why? What happened? And how could such a huge idea that seemed to change social media fall so hard? In this video, I'm going to tell you the story of how Clubhouse grew and then failed, and show you how to avoid making the same mistakes with your own startup. So if you're ready, grab a spacesuit, an ET t-shirt, and a ticket to SpaceX, because this story is out of this world. Let's get it. While the world was wallowing in the misery and chaos of a global pandemic, eating DoorDash and hoping to get their hands on a fresh pack of Charmin toilet tissue, two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs were busy cooking up an app that exploded into the market and caused a level of worldwide anticipation that we haven't seen since the launch of Facebook. It was called Clubhouse, and just like any other invite-only club, we all wanted to be involved, to have that badge that we were a part of something that wasn't available to everybody else. It was near the end of 2020, a year that none of us will ever forget. Looking at pictures of people sitting in their house on Instagram, yeah, that got boring. More pandemic posts on Facebook, that got old pretty quickly too. And don't even talk about all the work from home motivational posts on LinkedIn. Pathetic. Then, like an angel sent down from the social heavens, we started hearing chatter about this new thing called Clubhouse. It was all the rage for months, the new kid on the social media block. It was fresh, unique, and most importantly, a great escape from the reality of early pandemic life. But why did it create so much anticipation anyway? I mean, it's not like we don't already have a million different ways to communicate with other people. There's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Zoom, Google Meet, and Slack, WhatsApp, Skype, and WeChat, FaceTime, phone call, and text, and even old school stuff like chat rooms, forums, and party lines. Did we really need another social media app? Probably not. I mean, really, we probably could have got away with not ever having social media at all. But when it came to Clubhouse, ultimately there were two things that made us want to join. First, it was the only social media site that utilized audio-based chat rooms and created a hierarchy with speakers and listeners. And secondly, and maybe more importantly, you could only check it out if you had an invite. And as Clubhouse went on to prove, these ingredients were like fire and gasoline, and word of this cool members-only app exploded. But we'll talk about that later. Let's go back to where it all started. Remember those two Silicon Valley entrepreneurs that I mentioned earlier? Well, their names were Paul Davison and Seth Rohan, and they were both Stanford graduates who were already well settled into their careers as entrepreneurs and app developers. They really weren't new to technology. Both of them worked for Google at some point and succeeded at several other big-name tech companies. Launching startups was a familiar journey to both of these founders. Let's start with Pete Davison. In 2012, he launched another app called Highlight. The app tracked users' locations and showed them profiles of people within their vicinity who had similar interests. Honestly, that kind of sounds super sketchy. I mean, it would be kind of weird to be shopping at the mall with my kids and then somebody walks up to me all creepily like,
hey there, Mike, so I hear that you like doing business and taking long walks on the beach.
But in 2012, I guess we were just more open to having our privacy intruded upon or something, because after Paul showcased Highlight at South by Southwest that same year, everybody was buzzing about it. Investors were literally beating down his door hoping to write him $1 million check. But just a year later, the app was already dead. Now look, the truth is, most businesses fail. Most startups don't make it. But if patterns mean anything, which they do, then it's almost deja vu that Clubhouse almost followed the same pattern of building massive anticipation just to sort of be a letdown in the end. Then there's Seth Rohan, who also had entrepreneurial experience. He was an early part of Google's mobile Android team that worked on software like Google Maps. In 2014, he founded Memory Labs, a development company that created social media apps like Kitbot, Phone a Friend, Hashtag, and Goofer. Open Door acquired Memory Labs in 2017, giving Seth a very successful exit. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know that from my perspective, the team is probably the most important element of a successful startup. And you would think that with Paul Davison and Seth Rohan's combined genius and their streak of originality, that Clubhouse would have been an infallible tech giant like Facebook and Twitter, right? Well, it didn't quite work out that way. But slow down, guys, we haven't gotten to that part yet. We're still at the beginning where Clubhouse first began. And interestingly enough, it didn't even begin as Clubhouse. It actually started out as a small startup in the fall of 2019 called Talk Show. Basically, it was an audio-only app designed for delivering podcasts, but they quickly abandoned that idea and pivoted the concept. And after a 360-degree rebranding in March of 2020, the world saw a full-fledged app called Clubhouse. With roots in San Francisco, Clubhouse was quickly embraced by Silicon Valley. And just like those patterns we talked about, they rapidly secured funding from venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz in the amount of $10 million. Not to jump too far ahead, but in January of 2021, the same VC firm invested an additional $100 million, giving Clubhouse a post-money valuation of $1 billion. Now that's no small feat, and they don't call them unicorns for nothing. I mean, when's the last time you walked out your front door and saw a unicorn? Exactly. Clubhouse implemented a simple but effective adoption strategy. Usage was limited to its members, and to become a member, you first needed an invite from another member. No invite, no access. It was exclusive, and for that reason, everybody wanted to be involved. The idea was if your friends didn't send you an invite, then your exclusive membership was just out of your reach, like a carrot on a stick. And if you really couldn't hold out, you could find invites on eBay for like $50 to $400. I mean, fear of missing out is real. But hold on, let's pause here because I want to give you the first insight, something that you can actually learn from Clubhouse and immediately apply to your startup. But before we get there, I want to offer you exclusive access to our channel. If you're an entrepreneur, you won't want to miss our tips on growing your startup exponentially. And all you have to do is tap the subscribe button down below, hit the like button, and hit the ring bell. You do need an invite though, and this is it. I'm inviting you because, well, we're friends. So what can you learn from the rise of Clubhouse? Well, you can learn how to leverage exclusivity and FOMO, or the fear of missing out. If you have something that people really want, then restrict access and they'll want it more. This strategy has worked for numerous companies in and outside of the tech world. De Beers Diamonds, for example, restricts availability of their diamonds to drive up the price. During the Beanie Baby phase, the world went nuts bidding up the prices of the most exclusive beanies. Hundreds or thousands of dollars for what was essentially a bunch of beans sold into a piece of fabric. And then there's NFTs, which literally earns their value from exclusivity. Okay, back to the story. So we talked about how they launched. Now let's talk about user adoption, because 2020 and 2021 proved very successful for Clubhouse. There are very few overnight success stories, but Clubhouse very well may be one of them. In the beginning, the media really hyped them up, dubbing the app as the first AirPod social network or Zoom with the community. When you're a startup and everybody is comparing you to large and established companies, then you know that you're really onto something. And if you didn't catch that, that was tip number 2. The truth is, most apps don't even get a single download on the first day. They might get a few hundred over the first month if they're lucky. But Clubhouse, they had over 10 million downloads in February of 2020 alone. Downloads, not users, because remember, you couldn't actually use it without an invite. Demand was obviously not the problem for Clubhouse. By December of 2020, the app had around 600,000 active users worldwide. Okay, I know. Compared to 10 million downloads, that kind of sounds a little lackluster. But this is an early startup that we're talking about, an invite-only club with over 500,000 users. By 2021, they hit 2 million users. And by February of 2021, they already had over 6 million users. And with those type of stats, you would think that Clubhouse would keep the same velocity and take over the world like Facebook or Twitter. And just to frame this up, we're not just talking about an app where our friends were, because every social media application had that. But Clubhouse invited high-profile guests like Jack Dorsey, Hannibal Buress, E40, MC Hammer, Mark Andreessen, Van Jones, Mark Zuckerberg, Ben Horowitz, Mark Cuban, and Kevin Hart. And whether you consider yourself a fanboy or fangirl or not, let's face it, Having all those celebrities in one place made us all want to join. It didn't matter if you wanted to hear from your favorite actor or rapper, or a business expert, or an astronaut, Clubhouse was that link. Elon Musk invited Vladimir Putin and asked him to join in on the conversation. And we know how quickly discussions turn into arguments. The truth is, chaos is attractive, and having a first row seat to so much drama was more exciting than turning on the TV and watching another news program showing that COVID-19 spread chart. And furthermore, wherever the celebrities are, that's where you're gonna find the media. Clubhouse gave you immediate access to the coolest celebrities. I mean, in comparison, MySpace gave you Tom, who was your first social media BFF. And here's where the major customer acquisition started happening. Because the more members that join, well, the more members that would join. When each user gets 10 invites, one member turns to 10, 10 turns to 100, 100 turns to 1,000, 1,000 turns to 10,000, and so on and so on. The app was booming, and people were spending hours listening in and participating on conversations about hundreds of topics from politics to get-rich-quick schemes. It was fun, it was exciting, and for investors, it seemed like the investment opportunity of a lifetime. The app's release was really perfectly timed, and it almost seemed as though it had been created precisely for the pandemic. And yeah, we had things that we were already using for communicating, but they went beyond what other solutions offered. Zoom was for work, and nobody really wanted to be on video during that time. I mean, truthfully, I didn't even brush my hair for like the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. The time was too ugly to be on video all day. I'm sure that you will agree that social media had become a bit overwhelming. Everything was about the pandemic. We were literally dying for socialization, some entertainment, just anything that didn't have to do with illness and death. And there it was, Clubhouse, offering a little bit of excitement at the time that we needed it most. So they had the pandemic, FOMO, celebrity, media mentions, a ton of funding, and they were still a brand new startup. And then the carpet was swept right from under their feet. Over the next several months, the rage died down like it never existed in the first place. It's kind of like when you shake up a Pepsi and then open it, it explodes and fizzles down, and then after that it just tastes kind of flat. And that might sound like a weird comparison, but that's actually kind of how it happened. The major draw of the app was that you could listen in on exclusive discussions. You couldn't record or live broadcast it anywhere else. At least initially you couldn't. Now people just screen record on their phones and place the conversations directly to YouTube. But so is life. And honestly, some of these conversations were super entertaining. I mean, there were even startups pitching investors in business rooms like a real-time Shark Tank. Users could start a room and discuss anything. So think about all those political arguments in the comments on Facebook, but transitioned into a real-time discussion, or an argument in many cases. You like talking about exotic pets? Well fine, start an exotic pets chat. Are you an expert in dinosaurs? Well, you could start a group on Clubhouse for that too. So why did it all come tumbling down so rapidly? Well, it did so because simply things change. The same thing that made them blow up are the same things that made them fall. See, it's one thing when you're cooped up at home and you can't even go to the grocery store. In that situation, it's easy to sit on the phone for hours tuning in to discussions. But we put masks on, we got vaccines, governments removed the stay-at-home orders, people went to restaurants again, we started having parties again, big events started returning, and we just didn't have time to sit there listening in anymore. There's a reason why social media apps like Facebook and Twitter have stuck around so long. We can digest the information at our own convenience. You could probably read 100 tweets during a 10-minute work break, or quickly scroll down your entire Facebook feed in a matter of minutes. We don't have to stick around for hours scared to sign off because we don't want to miss anything. And here's tip number 3. Your startup cannot survive without constantly adapting, because markets change, consumers change, pandemics happen, and simply new things just come out that take our attention away from yesterday's fad. If you want your startup to last over the long term, you have to be willing to change, and you have to stay ahead of the curve so that you know when those changes are necessary. But market changes weren't the only issue for Clubhouse. All in all, the company raised $110 million in VC funding, and that's pretty significant for a startup. I mean, that should be enough to compete, right? Well, not quite when you're competing against some of the largest brands in the entire world. Let's compare. At its height, Clubhouse was valued at around $1 billion. I mean, that's pretty insane, right? But on the other side, Reddit is valued at $3 billion, Twitter is valued at almost $30 billion, and Facebook is valued at almost $1 trillion. And do you know the one thing that all of these major companies have in common? They really, really, really hate competition. The good news is that if you make something that they can't make themselves, then they'll likely try to buy it. Twitter initially offered Clubhouse $4 billion, but there was nothing that was legally proprietary with Clubhouse, and so it was much easier to just build the same thing instead of buying them out. And this is where the big businesses showcase their massive power. Instead of buying Clubhouse, everybody just built their own solution. Because now there's Discord stage channels, Facebook Live audio rooms, Reddit talk, Slack huddles, Spotify green rooms, Telegram voice chats, and Twitter spaces. And just like Clubhouse, these solutions quickly gain market share, taking it right from under their feet. Business is brutal, and if you can't protect it, then it makes it easy for someone to come in and take your idea and make it their own. And when there's 100 different versions of the same product in the market, it kind of loses what makes it special. And that's exactly what happened to Clubhouse. While group audio discussions sound really cool, the truth is it really just gets old pretty quick. Fun discussions turn into arguments, political differences turn into racist rhetoric, hate speech becomes used more regularly. Eventually it ends up feeling like you're just talking to a bunch of kids playing Call of Duty on a PlayStation party chat. No one really wants to argue all day, and eventually the drama just gets overwhelming. They say that what goes up must come down. And I think that for Clubhouse, the ship has sailed. But you don't have to make the same mistakes in your business because you have a Clubhouse to learn from. Make awesome stuff, create FOMO where possible, be flexible, and stay ahead of the market so that you know what consumers want and when they want it. And that's a wrap on Clubhouse and on this video. But we'll be back next week with a new video to help you create and grow amazing startups. Until then, take care and keep creating amazing shit.